Welcome to Actual Scale Modelling. This is part 2 of the diorama for the Battle of Kursk. In the first part I began with making up the frame and base for the diorama, then finishing up putting down the base colour. In this part I'll be doing a little bit more work on the base, adding some more ground coverage, adding the first structure to go on as well. And if I have time, I'll also begin weathering the tanks that are going to go into the diorama. So let's get into this build. Well, to begin with, I'm going to be making up the first structure. So it's back to my clay. Just to recap, this is air drying clay. So I'm just grabbing a lump of it, rolling it around my hand, getting it more pliable. And then rolled it into a sausage shape and taken off little bits at the end, as you can see there. And now I've got to form these into little stones. Now you can do this a couple of ways really. You can shape it with your fingers like I'm doing here, or you can use a straight edge, say a ruler for instance, that I've got here, just to flatten it down. Now if you're trying this technique, don't worry if it's not 100% square or perfect, because you don't want it to be. The reason why I'm doing these individually is because each one is going to be slightly different. You're emulating nature. Nothing is really the same. So I've got quite a lot of these to make up. So as you can see, just taking a little bit of clay, rolling it into a ball, and shaping it into roughly to look like a block of stone. So now that I've got a few made up, as you can see there, I'm going to have to let these dry at least overnight before I can think about painting them. So these are my little stones, brickworks. So you see here, got them all here with various other bits of shiters. So I've got to build these up into a wall like that. So I'm just going to use some super glue. I'm just simply going to super glue them together. Now I've already had a look how I'm going to join these on the actual diorama. So that's the first one done. So I need about 4 high for these. As you can see, I fast forwarded this part, so I'm just building up the wall as I go along, adding a little bit of super glue and each stone connected to it. It does take a fair amount of time to do, but it is worth doing. So I've got almost the main wall finished here. This is going to be a door, so this is the lintel. I've started off the next part of the door wall, and I'm just placing this on now, and then just putting on the top part, but same as the actual wall construction, just building it along the next to the lintel. So I'll carry on doing that, doing the other side of the wall. Now is time to do the right angle to the wall. So first of all, I'm just lining it up, having it on the upright just to make sure I know the placement of the next stonework, and with a little bit of super glue connecting each, and just marking it out so that I know how I want the wall to go. I didn't particularly want a square building here. I wanted an interesting shape, so it's sort of zigzag in a sense. So I'll carry on building this up just like the first one, getting the initial shape and building the wall up onto the front part. That's the main structure done, as you can see there. It now stands on its own. It's still a little bit loose, it can still move about a little bit. That's okay for now, but if you do, you may want to address it. I'm just using one of my figures to check for height. Looks like I'm going to have to add in another layer at the bottom for it to fit through. I primed the wall, and now I'm painting it in Revel Aquacolor 75 Stone Grey for the stone wall, and I'm just stippling it on, or stabbing the paint in. You don't want any even coats here, you just want it on randomly to look more like stonework. I placed the structure in the corner like that. Unfortunately the thing did break apart when I moved it. You can just see it happening here. I tried to put it back together, but In the end, I decided that I was going to have it in a demolished state. The wood that you see here is balsa wood. The intention at first was to put in some floorboards, but with the wall collapsing slightly, the the floorboards will just act as a debris inside the actual building now. So it's a little bit extra work as such, but it's alright. When you build these things, you adapt as you build them. Yeah, I could have went back and repaired the wall and got it more stable, but in the end, you know what? I liked the idea of the demolished building. I'm taking those strips of wood then and just placing them inside the building, some on the angle on top of the wall, onto the actual base of the diorama. This will help with support as well. Now, the idea is to get them as a random pattern as possible, but be aware you are going to have to build up different layers as well. So think how a building collapses, what would hit the ground first, and so on. Initially, this is just a test run to see how it's going to look. So I put a little bit of ballast down just to make it look a bit rubbly. I'm using Life Colour LPW18 wood darkener, and this puts the wood to quite a dark colour. It's very thin, this stuff. It's awesome for shipbuilding and whatnot. And I'm just dotting this around to dirty up the beams of wood, and then using the contrast lighter shadow to go over. So that is done. I'm going to take my little spare boulders that I've done, put a bit of glue in and just let them fall where they may. So what I've got here is some plant matter that I took from the garden. This is like dried grass really. And I'm just going to again spray with some PVA glue. And then I'm just going to cut little bits off. That should do it, don't need much. And I want these more to the side, starting up like that, I think. Back to the main base. As you can see there, I painted the foxholes in it a slightly lighter brown. So now it's spraying some more PVA glue on before adding a little bit of coverage. This is just a little bit of fine ballast that I'm sprinkling on, depending on what sort of foxholes and that you want, is how you decide to cover them up as such. I will probably be adding more things to the foxholes. It depends how well they look once everything's in place. I may build them up a bit more or not. I'm not 100% sure at the moment. So I'm now going to put this in. This is a stone block that I used for another diorama that I had left over. So I've just got two little bits. So I'll just put them in. Got a bit of super glue. Calm down, I think, yeah. Yeah, it fits better. That'll go there. So now it's onto the main coverage. So again, I'm using my PVA spray, giving it a liberal coating over an area before placing on the bottom layer of ground coverage. Now this is burnt grass earth blend, and I'm just sprinkling it on everywhere to cover the entire diorama. So this will be a good place to end part 2. Didn't quite have time to show you the weathering of the tanks, but I'll do that in part 3. And in part 3 I will be placing the tanks onto the diorama and doing a little bit more groundwork. If you haven't done so already, why don't you check out the channel for the other parts of this build, including how I made up the tanks and so on. Subscribe to the channel for future updates, including for this diorama build. Hit that like button and of course leave a comment. But for now, thank you all very much for watching. Bye bye.